I'm here with Kerry Bogert, and she is the author of Totally Twisted. A beautiful book, Kerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And today you're going to tell us about wire gauges, right?
Yep, that was something very early on when I was doing basic like stringing beading and I wanted to add wire to my work. I had no idea where to start. And I was online ordering wire and I would just ordered whatever gave me the most on a spool.
And so now you have some more tips for us.
Yeah, so that you know what's the right wire to use and what won't really work for projects.
I love the way you bring color into your work. It's a natural extension of all these beads that you're making.
Color, yep. Yeah. Color is very important. Love color. And today all the beads are blues and greens, kind of fun.
Might be my favorite color palette, I think.
Yeah.
All right, well, show us the wire here.
Okay. I started with just simple wrapped loops and just simple eye-pin loops to show you what different gauges look like in a very common application. So here we started with a really heavy gauge 14 wire, or 14 gauge wire. The smaller the number, the bigger the wire.
That's so confusing, isn't it?
It is.
So always remember, the smaller the number is heavier, and then the higher you get, the thinner.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So on this one, 14 would be really hard.
It is. It's very thick. Even though it's dead soft wire, which is very soft and malleable, at 14 gauge, it can be tough to work with. So I did manage to wrangle it into a wrapped loop
really good,
here.
Actually.
But for the
carpal tunnel after that.
For the everyday beater, 14 gauge,
don't start there.
You need to save that for like the core wire inside a bangle, or if you were going to use a neck wire.
Something structural.
Yeah, that's where you want to use 14 gauge. But I did also put it into some simple loops here, and it looks okay. You want to kind of choose wire that balances with the size of the bead you're using, and it would be okay here, having made a chain of it, but really not as practical.
Really heavy duty, but you're going to kill your wrist,
right,
basically.
Exactly. Okay. So moving down a size, up a number, down a size, with 16 gauge, this is one of my favorite gauges. 16 and 18 I tend to use a lot.
Well, you're using these really large beads too, and they have a larger hole, so that makes sense.
So here's how it looks with a wrapped loop, and then simple loops. And here I just used
milky
a
blue
copper.
Beads too.
Isn't that pretty?
Yes, it's lovely.
And I made them like a little pebble.
Pretty.
And 16 gauge in this instance does work well, but again
it's difficult.
It's kind of hard to work with. Perfect gauge for this is 18. Not so much as the simple loops, where these were just simple loops.
Right.
Here, simple loop doesn't work.
It doesn't really fill it up.
No, it doesn't.
You might really want to go ahead and wrap it then.
Right, exactly. So here it is with the wrapped loops, and what I love to do more than just wrap loops in this instance is chunky wrapped loops. So these last two have extra wrapping, and when you're making a wrap loop, just leave yourself a couple extra inches and double it over, and it gives a really cool look.
When I tried this, I wanted it to be really tight and perfect, and then I realized when you're doubling it, that's not what you want.
No,
you want
just
it to be kind of loose and
then
you just tuck
spin
it
around.
Right?
Exactly.
With chain nose pliers.
Yep. And then get in there with some wire nippers and
make sure it's nice and flush.
Yep.
But the 18 gauge is a lot easier to work with.
It is. It is. And I said these are dead soft wires. Wire comes in 3 hardness ratings: dead soft, half hard, and full hard. I always order dead soft wire.
Oh, you do?
Always. And the reason for that being, you can work hard in soft wire, but it takes a torch to anneal hard wire. And annealing in this case makes it softer to work with. So average beaters are not going to want to torch wire before working with it. So
and anytime
order
you're
dead
using
soft.
the colored wire, it's basically dead soft.
Yeah, it is.
Already.
Yep. And here we did it with 20 gauge. 20 gauge not going to work. If the beads were smaller, it might. But again, it's you want to balance the size of the wire with the beads.
Right. And 24 gauge, really, for this heavy bead, it doesn't work at all.
The beads all slide around, and the wire can't.
Something more delicate.
Yeah,
little pearls
it'd be
or something
beautiful, like a chain of seed beads made with 24 gauge.
Good. Well, show us the coiling over here.
Coiling is something that I do all throughout Totally Twisted. It's my favorite thing to do. And really, this is nice because any gauge wire will work for coiling. It is.
You're not looking to support any weight.
Nope, nope. And usually the coils have a core wire running through the inside of them, so they'll take on any shape you want to use.
That's such a good technique. And for hooks, then you do need to pay more attention.
You do. And this is somewhere that heavier gauge wires will work well. 16 and 14 make a very nice clasp. 18 works well too, but I like doubling it up into like this fish hook rather than...
To give it some more structure.
Yeah, it gives it a little more strength. 20 gauge, again, just too soft and too fine. It's not going to work. 24, forget about it.
Forget it for a clasp. Well, I think
forget about it.
On these, you can really, I love what you did here to show us too, because it shows you some different techniques.
I think clasps are a great way to personalize your jewelry and find a clasp that you like, and you can use it on everything, and it becomes like your signature.
That's a really good idea. Really good idea. And you could bring in color here too.
You could.
You did these samples in sterling.
I did do the samples in sterling.
And so on the heavier ones, they're work hardening.
Yeah, I just I used a nylon mallet and a bench block and just knocked it a few times. You can see it's really stiff. It doesn't like to bend.
It's
so
not going to come apart.
Nope.
And on your ear wires then, how do you decide?
Ear wires, pretty standard, 20 gauge is going to be the way to go. Most of the time wire tends to come in even numbers. Once in a while you'll see a 21 gauge and that will work too for ear wires. But for the most part, 20 gauge is the way to go. And 16 gauge, unless you've had your lobes stretched, it's going to be uncomfortable. And 24 gauge, any weight on that wire, it's just going to pull it open. Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to do a quick recap of the wire gauges. So for an ear wire, 20 gauge works really great.
Yep.
And for a clasp, you could use 16 or 18. Would be
both work
a good
great.
choice. And if you're doing some wrapped links, 18 gauge is your preferred size,
I
right?
like 18 best.
And for coils, anything goes.
Anything goes with coils.
All right. Well, Totally Twisted is great, and thank you so much.
Thanks again.